This video will be a beginner's guide to competitive matchmaking in CSGO. This video is recommended for people that are completely new to CSGO or people that haven't played a lot and want to learn how to increase their win rate. First of all, CSGO has its own competitive matchmaking mode, where you play against players that have similar matchmaking rank, but there are third-party services that offer a more serious competitive matchmaking than CSGO's own. The most famous one is Faceit, which has a lot of players and is quite well known in the CSGO community. There are also other services such as ECA and the Esportal. However, ECA costs to use and the Esportal is more based in Scandinavia, with some other countries having access to it as well, which makes the amount of active players not that good. So for most beginners, it's best to use Faceit as it's free to use and has a large amount of active players. Competitive matchmaking, or comp for short, is a match round 15 game mode in CSGO where two teams with 5 players each duke it out until one team wins 16 rounds or it ends in a 15-15 tie. But that is normal matchmaking. In Faceit there is no tie, so if the match gets to 15-15 it will become a match round 3 game with additional economy added. Finally, we're at the proper guide, and first of all we're going to talk about mouse sensitivity. Mouse sensitivity is made of two factors, the built-in mouse DPI dots per inch and the in-game sensitivity. But before we start talking about that, you should go into the Windows settings for your mouse, open additional mouse options, the third tab, pointer options, and turn off enhance pointer precision. This option will mess with your pointer. And when you're in-game, you want to turn on raw input. This will make it so CSGO only uses your DPI times in-game sensitivity. Now we can start messing with the mouse sensitivity. Most pro players use between 400 to 800 DPI. If you have a good mouse, you can change it in the software for a mouse, or if you have a DPI button that changes it. I recommend using either 400 or 800 since they are the most optimal and most used. After that we can go into CSGO and change the in-game sensitivity. The value you have in CSGO you use to multiply your DPI to get your eDPI. Pro players use between 600 and 1000 eDPI, with some exceptions. However, you can't take someone else's sensitivity and become a god player. You need to become adjusted to the eDPI you're using, so it's not recommended you change it frequently. Your eDPI needs to be slow enough to make small, precise movements and fast enough to quickly move your mouse to spin around in-game. Use an eDPI that you're comfortable with and stick with it and only make tiny adjustments every now and then to keep it fresh so your brain has to focus. CSGO has its own economy in the game modes, and in competitive it's especially important to keep track of yours and your team's economy. When you get better at the game, you can try estimating the enemy team's economy, but I won't be talking about that here. The most important part of economy is to know when to buy and what to buy depending on your economy and your team's economy. There are 4 basic terms for buying. Number 1, eco, number 2, force, number 3, half buy, and number 4, full buy. Eco is when you have around $2,000 left in your own bank after buying, and it's usually a better pistol and a little utility, nothing fancy. Force is when you don't have enough for the good stuff, but buy instead to try and ruin the enemy team's economy. Or if you and your team have really bad economy and bad loss bonus. For example, your team have around $700 each and you have $1,900 loss bonus. It's better to force and equal the round after if you lose the round. Half buy is similar to force except you have good loss bonus. In a half buy you buy down to around $1,000 to $1,400 so you can get the good stuff next round, but still have a chance to win the round. It's better to go for an SMG and utility or FAMAS and Galil and little utility depending on the map you play. In a half buy it doesn't matter too much if you win or lose the round, since you'll have money either way. Full buy is when you buy all the good stuff you need. The numbers that is good to keep in mind when doing a full buy is, for terrorist side, $4,800 and $6,850. With $4,800 you can get Kevlar helmet, AK, smoke, Molotov and 2 flashes, and you can adjust it depending on if you change the grenades. With $6,850 you can get the same thing but an AWP instead of an AK. On the counter-terrorist side it depends on if you use the M4A4 or M4A1S, but it's only a $200 difference. $5,350 with the M4A1S and $5,550 with the M4A4. Both of these get you M4A4, M4A1S, Kevlar, kit, flash, smoke, Molotov, and HE. Usually you don't need a kit or helmet as ET, depending on where you play and other specific reasons. So those numbers is actually $400 less. $7,200 is the same, but an AWP instead of an M4A4 or M4A1S. Different weapons are better in different situations. It all depends on what map you're playing, where you're playing, and what economy your team has. Of course, the AWP is the best weapon to kill, since it can kill someone if you shoot their hand, but overall, the AK is the best weapon since it has good damage, can kill instantly with one headshot, and has good accuracy. After the AK is the M4A1S. It has more damage than the M4A4, but less bullets. It doesn't kill instantly with a headshot, so you need to shoot them at least twice if they have a helmet. If you don't have money for an AK or M4, the Galil for T side is pretty good, and for CT side the FAMAS is also good. But they don't have as much damage and can't kill instantly with a headshot. For close range, an SMG is very good, such as the MAC-10 for T side and the MP9 for CT side. If you and your team has an eco, it'd be better to buy a pistol. The Deagle is pretty good, but doesn't have a lot of bullets and isn't very accurate when shooting fast. So it might be good to buy a Tech 9 for T side or a 5.7 or CZ for CT side. Shotguns are very good at close range, but not that good at longer ranges. The way to shoot accurately is to stand still, because then your first bullet will always be where your crosshair is. But for more shots, you will need to control the recoil on your weapon. Every weapon in CSGO has a recoil pattern that will happen every time you shoot and stand still. You can learn the pattern by practicing to shoot the different weapons. There are maps for practicing the different recoil patterns. I recommend Recoil Master, made by Uletical. Link to the map is in the description. However, you need to move when playing CSGO, so you should learn how to counter-strafe. You counter-strafe by going sideways and then stop and quickly tapping the button to go the other direction, to stop moving faster. It will take some time to get the hang of, but you just need to practice it and shooting when you stop to know if you're accurate or not. One of the most important part of competitive CSGO is using utility. You can win a round with just using utility in the right way. There are 5 different pieces of utility. There is the smoke grenade, the flash grenade, the HG grenade, Molotov or incendiary grenade, and the decoy. The decoy is pretty useless, so we won't be talking about that one. We start talking about the smoke grenade. It can be used to block off vision for around 15 seconds once it has landed. For example, jungle on Mirage, window on Mirage, and banana on Inferno. It kind of acts like a temporary wall, but you and everyone else can walk through the smoke and come out the other side, so be careful. It can even act as a one-way depending on where you're standing and where the smoke has landed. So if you see a smoke in a weird place, it might be the enemy using it as a one-way. The smoke can even be used to extinguish Molotovs and incendiary grenades, and unlike the other grenades, will only explode or start after it has landed on the ground, and while the others have a timer from when you throw it. Next is the flash grenade. It is used to blind and make enemies unable to hear for a few seconds, but be careful since your own flash can blind you and your teammates as well. In most cases, if an enemy is flashed, they will back off and take a different position to avoid getting killed. It will explode after roughly 2 seconds. Next is the HE grenade. HE stands for High Explosive Grenade and will explode roughly 2 seconds after being thrown. The damage is determined by the distance and if they have armor or not. Max damage for unarmored enemies is 98, while an armored enemy can receive a max damage of 57. For T side, the HE grenade is not as useful if used by a single player, since if you have an AK you will still be able to one-shot the enemy in the head. But if you and your team coordinate your grenades, it might kill an opponent without them seeing it. But for the CT side, having an HE grenade can be very handy since both the M4A4 and M4A1S will deal 92 damage on headshot if the opponent has a helmet. But if you throw an HE grenade before dealing 10 damage, you can kill them instantly with a headshot. Or if you hit them in the head once and throw the HE grenade, you will most likely kill them with the grenade. Last is the Molotov and incendiary grenade. They are pretty much exactly the same, except the Molotov is $200 cheaper. They will explode roughly 2 seconds after being thrown if it doesn't hit the ground, and unlike the other grenades, will instantly explode on impact with the ground. They will start dealing 1 damage and build up to a max of 8 damage. From here it will do 40 damage per second. They will stay on the ground for roughly 7 seconds after exploding on the ground. They can be used to block off a small portion of the area temporarily, such as mark it on Mirage, A-ramp on Mirage, Banana Inferno, and even be thrown on the bomb to hinder the CT from defusing the bomb. If you want to practice throwing the different grenades, I recommend downloading a practice config and going into a private server to do that. There will be a link in the description to a video that is very good and informative. Before you do that though, you should know that Faceit and other third-party services use 128-tick servers, while normal CSGO servers use 64-tick. This means that some of the grenades you throw will land differently depending on if you have 64-tick or 128-tick. To change this, go into Steam, right-click on CSGO, press Properties, and under Launch Options, put in -tickrate space 786432, and voila! You have 128-tick private server now, as you can see here.